Episode 3 of The Public Eye: The Right to Protest in a Free Society. At the end of 2019, we witnessed unprecedented public protests in our country. Thousands and thousands assembled on the streets to demand that the government rethink the Citizenship Amendment Act and the National Register for Citizens. Such public protests are the hallmark of a free democratic society, whose logic demands that the voice of the people be heard by those in power and decisions be reached after proper discussion and consultation. For this, the right to freedom of expression, association, and peaceably assemble are necessary. Any arbitrary restraint on the exercise of such rights by, for instance, imposing Section 144 in anticipation of violent disruption of public order shows the inability of the government to tolerate dissent. It shows not the propensity of people to riot, but rather acknowledges the incapacity of the government to discuss, deliberate, or listen. Any unreasonable limitation on protest is an affront to the very people whose name a government is allowed to temporarily govern. One must be grateful to the courts for having reiterated that the right to protest is fundamental. Any innocent student of the Constitution may examine it and find the word protest is missing. He may read the relevant articles of the Constitution, particularly Article 19, altogether non-politically. For example, the right to free speech and expression may be taken to mean that everybody has a right to express their opinion on, say, a film, or on the condition of the city they inhabit. The right to associate to mean the right to form self-regulating clubs, professional associations or societies, and the right of peaceful assembly to mean the right to have a picnic in a park or to participate in a religious festival such as the Kumbh Mela. Important as these rights are, in authoritarian, illiberal states, even these rights are not guaranteed. This view is too narrow, because in a democracy, each of these embody active, not passive, citizenship. They constitute our political freedoms. The right to free speech and expression transforms into a right to freely express opinion on the conduct of government, and the right to association becomes a right to associate for political purposes. For instance, to collectively challenge government decisions, to aim peacefully and legally to displace the government. This is the basis of our multi-party system, where opposition parties are valuable adversaries, not enemies, and compete healthily for political power. Finally, the right to peaceably assemble allows political parties and citizen bodies, such as student groups, to question and object to acts of government by demonstrations, agitations, and public meetings, and launch sustained protest movements. In short, each of these rights have two interpretations. On the first, these rights are free from government interference and are exercised largely by people for private purposes in a classically liberal, non-political public space. In the second, rights are associational and are exercised to influence or gain power, and therefore fundamentally political. These political rights are basic to a democratic polity. The constitution of any country gets its substance not just from the letter, but also from the historically distilled lived experience, often referred to as its spirit. The second interpretation, therefore, flows directly from our history. Undoubtedly, the background of a constitution is formed by our anti-colonial struggle, within which the seeds of a political public sphere in our democratic constitution are sown. The Indian people fought hard and long to publicly express their views on colonial policies and laws, to dissent from them, to shape minds and form public opinion against them, to speak to and against the government, and to challenge it. People not only signed writ petitions, but also staged dharnas and held large public meetings, peaceful protests, and demonstrations, and even, for instance, in Gandhi's Satyagraha launched civil disobedience movements. None of these are literally found in the articles of our Constitution, but are presupposed by it. This is why the preamble states that we are a democratic republic. This cluster of interrelated political rights, expression, association, assembly, petition, and protest, is meant to ensure that even when the government works in our interests, we don't passively sit back and allow the government to conduct business as usual. We act as watchdogs and constantly monitor their acts. For even such governments can falter, and then it is up to us to recognize and rectify their mistakes through consultations, meetings, and discussion. However, another serious situation can easily arise. An elected government may stray from the constitutional course, go against the interests of the people, become unresponsive, and refuse to listen. Here, pressure against the government must be built by still stronger public methods. Protests may take the form of street assemblies, the occasional temporary gathering of a group to parade or demonstrate or become a sustained movement, which is necessary to complement or reinforce more conventional forms of politics. Remember Poti Sriramulu's starving himself to death in order to draw the attention of the Madras state government to the urgency of creating a new Telugu-speaking state of Andhra, or the Chipko movement, in which Gaura Devi, Chandi Prasad Bhatt, and many others began to hug trees to prevent the then UP government from awarding contracts to commercial loggers. Such protest movements are particularly important for those outside the mainstream or who are not educated formally. After all, any disaffected person, no matter how illiterate or powerless, can shout a slogan, hold up a placard, go on a silent march, and oppose the government. Meetings around a table rarely involve as many people as street protests do. It is not for nothing that Abraham Lincoln called the right of the people to peacefully assemble a constitutional substitute for revolution. It is amply clear that democracies everywhere are founded on two core political rights. The first, the right of every citizen to freely elect their government, and when dissatisfied with its performance, to vote it out of power in a legitimately held election. Article 326 of the Indian Constitution specifies that. This remains the only proper constitutional procedure to get rid of a government, and rightly so. Indeed, peaceful transfer of power is one of the great strengths of democracies. But short of displacing it, as long as it is done peacefully, any form of political action to challenge its proposals or decisions is also constitutionally legitimate, forming the second core political right. To politically participate not only during but between elections. The right to protest, to publicly question and force the government to answer, is a fundamental political right of the people that flows directly from a democratic reading of Article 19. If so, one is left speechless at the way in which governments sidestep issues, duck questions, and willfully obstruct any attempt to discuss. If so, one is left speechless at the way in which some governments, for example our current government, sidesteps issues, duck questions, and willfully obstruct any attempt to discuss. They habitually take decisions secretively and foist them on an unprepared people, and when challenged, campaign and canvass in order to retrospectively justify their opaque midnight decisions. Will, for instance, the BJP government that promised Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Vikas demonstrate its legitimacy by really listening to everyone, especially its critics, or will it continue to vilify all opponents as traitors or anti-nationals? Thank you.